I thought this shirt would be appropriate because of what we're going to talk about today.
Pull my heart out of my chest, train my mind so I forget. Sink your teeth into my bones, dig me out then.
Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel. So for today's video, I guess this is, well, I don't really know how I'm going to label this, but I am going to be reacting to an article that I found online. I will have that link down below, but I'm also going to attach some screenshots as I talk. But this is about the 10 most rewatchable episodes of MASH that never get old. Now, if you haven't been on the channel for a while, MASH is like my ultimate comfort show. I have watched it since I was in 6th grade. Like, I fell in love with it then. I talk more about it in my bullying story, but it got me through my middle school years, which were horrific. And I even have a tattoo of Alan Alda on my leg, who is Hawkeye, one of the main characters of the show. And I'm wanting to do maybe like this leg as a MASH theme, since MASH is so prevalent to my life. But yeah, I'll have more information about all of that in the cards. But I was wanting to talk about one of my favorite shows, and I'm starting to watch it again, and I'm just reminded of how funny it is, and just it brings me such joy and such comfort at the same time. So I thought I would bring that to you. So with that, let us get into the article. Also, I'm looking at it on my computer, so if I turn away, that's why. So number 10 is the pilot. The article mentions why it's on the list is because it gives vital insight to the inner workings of the story and also serves as a reminder of how far the series would come. That said, I mean, I completely agree with that. One of the things that I like about the pilot, and by the way, I'll try to keep spoilers out of this, but if there is any spoilers, I'll put like a spoiler alert on it. But one of the things that I really like about the pilot episode, how they set it up, is when, I can't remember, I think Radar's talking to Colonel Blake, maybe, but he says choppers, tells him that the choppers are coming, and he transitions to the right, and then it starts the theme song. And then from like that point of him turning on is how they show the theme throughout other parts of the series. So that's really cool. And I also get how, it kind of it sets up the story and everything. But honestly, when I rewatch MASH, I skip that episode because it's not the best. Like, if it's your first watch through, you absolutely need to watch it because it sets up a lot of the story and context and everything. But if you're well versed in it, like me, like literally we're watching it and I can quote what's coming next. So anyway, I tend to skip it because it's funny, but it's not really that funny. It's not really memorable. And also, I have a bone to pick because they have a different Father Mulcahy in the pilot than he is later on. William or Bill Christopher plays him throughout the series. I don't know who the one is in the pilot, but no. I'm so glad that they got Bill Christopher and for him go, because he was Colonel Potter Father Mulcahy to a T. So number 9 is Our Finest Hour, parts 1 and 2. And I think that it's this one. I could be wrong, but yes, it is. Okay. So this episode is actually the one episode that has the entire cast on it. So one thing I will tell you about MASH, it's kind of a spoiler, but not really, but there are different characters in the first part of the show and the last part of the show. So they get a new colonel. I forget which season it is, but they get a new colonel, and then there's also another character transition. So this is saying that the earlier characters are in this one as well as the other ones. So this one, from what I can remember, because I'm getting to that point in a minute, but this one is a it's a reporter interviewing all of the characters, and it aired back to back, so it was a 2-part story. And this one is on the list because you get to revisit all the cast and characters who were on the show from the beginning, and I'm sure that was emotional for them on the set as well as people watching it. This again is an episode that when I rewatch it, I tend to skip just because it's not one of the funny ones. And I hate saying that because Alan Alda really wanted there to be a focus on the war and how horrific it was, as well as the laughter. But when I watch the show, I watch it for the laughter because that's what I remember it as growing up. If that makes any sense, I think it does. But yeah, it's not one of the ones that I tend to watch again, but it is a very powerful episode from what I remember. And just the fact that it has the entire cast in it, I think that right there, it does need a place in this. So number 8 is Welcome to Korea. This is... I forgot to mention there was another character that was played. So there's like 3 characters, kinda, that were replaced with new actors. And this is when BJ Honeycutt, who was played by Mike Farrell, would come in on the scene. And then right after is when the new colonel came in. But this one is on here because it was the end of an era, because like I said, there were those character shifts. And I was talking about this with my mom because I watch it with her and we love it so much, that she said that when the original characters leave, it's sad because they were so funny, but then when you get into the shows with the new characters, it picks up and it's funny in its own way. So, that's why that one is on this list, because it marks the end of an era, but it's also change for the show, but it's good change. So I can agree with that one. That one is a pretty good episode. There's not anything in it that really stands out to me, but it is a pretty funny episode. So I agree with all of these, but they're not necessarily my favorites, but I really do agree with that one. So number 7 is The Joker is Wild. And this is where BJ and Hawkeye get into a prank war. I kind of remember this one. Is this one? Yeah, this is when everybody... Yeah. I believe that this is the one, and I don't want to give a spoiler, but like everyone is getting pranked and no one knows who is... Is it that one? This is really embarrassing. Because they, like the article says, they do so many prank ones, but I can't remember which exact one this is. But regardless, the prank episodes are hilarious, so I definitely agree with that. I just can't remember. I'm pretty positive that this is the one where there's like a pranking spree going on. Nobody knows who's doing it. And it comes down to the final thing, and someone thinks that they thwarted the prankster, but they really did it. I think that's the one. But all of the prank episodes are good, so I will agree with that one. So the next one is Lifetime, and this is a really interesting one because they show a clock on the bottom part of the screen, and that's like to represent how long it would take someone to go through a MASH unit in order to be saved. And, you know, you get to see all of this, like from when the soldier gets to the chopper pad all the way through. And that, I think that's one too that we skip, because again, it's not that funny, but it is a really good episode, and it was really fascinating how they put that clock on there. And I'm positive, I haven't read it for sure, but I'm thinking Alan Alda may have had a hand in that, because later on in the seasons, he really, like, he directed it, he wrote it, he acted in it, and he got awards for all of that. So I'm sure that may have been his idea or something like that. Okay, number 5, yes, absolutely. Number 5 is Yankee Doodle Doctor. And so what this one is about is there's going to be a documentary made about a MASH unit in the Korean War. And the general who's at the first of it, he's like, oh, I know the perfect one. It's MASH 4077. So the director goes and is filming this documentary, and Hawkeye and Trapper read the script and they're like, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is almost making a mockery of the war. Well, not really a mock, in their eyes, a mockery of the war. So they end up getting the footage that was used, completely ruining it. And they're like, oh, we can refilm it. You know, we'll do it. And then they do it in their own way that is making fun of the original documentary, because it takes its script, but they do their own thing on it. Absolutely hilarious. I 100% say that you need to watch that episode. But then at the end of it, Hawkeye, it talks about, you know, the war and how everything that was said before is ridiculous. And I'm just going to show a screenshot of that because, oh my gosh, Alan Alda looks so beautiful in that. But, like, that is a really funny episode. I highly recommend watching that. I'm interested to see the other ones before I'll rate that higher, but that definitely needs to be high up on the list because that is hilarious. So number 4 is Dear Sigmund, and this is about a recurring character who is Sidney Friedman, who was played by Alan Arbus. Side note, if you have played Life is Strange, and when they're, what are they talking? They're talking about something, I don't remember, and Victoria answers, and she says, Diane Arbus. That's his wife, just a FYI. But anyway, Sidney Freeman is a psychiatrist who makes guest appearances every now and then and provides his own kind of like dry wit to the script. But what Dear Sigmund is he is writing a letter to Sigmund Freud about MASH. And this was actually written and directed by Alan Alda, so no wonder this one's a really good one. But Sidney, it has just had a patient that has died and it's hit him, so he wanted to go to the MASH unit because he knew it was hilarious, or not hilarious, but it was an uplifting place to be around, even though they have casualties and stuff. And so he's writing about his experiences there. I love this episode because of one specific moment, and I'm not going to tell you who is doing it because that'll spoil it, but this is another prank episode. Like, there's pranks going on in the background and nobody knows who it is. But Frank Burns, who is a character in this show, he's one of the ones that gets replaced later on. He's very, like, by the book, strict military, and he builds a foxhole for something. I forget what it is, and he gets tricked into thinking that there's an air raid, and so he comes running out of the tent screaming air raid, and he trips and falls into his foxhole, and they filled it up with water. It's a hilarious thing. You have to see it. But I do I would put that one above Yankee Doodle Doctor just because of that moment. Number 3 is the last episode, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen. So, Goodbye, Farewell, Amen, that's the ending. That's the last episode of MASH that was ever filmed. And I don't watch that one because I don't like endings. I don't like to think about it ending. But, you know, the war's over. Everybody's leaving, doing their own thing. There's some, like, surprises in it. And that one, I'm going to have to do research to make sure it still is. But as far as I know, the ending, or the last episode, has been the most watched by a group of people, like most watched thing on television ever. I'm going to research that just to make sure that's still true. I know at one time it was, and I'm pretty positive it still is. Just because MASH was like not culture changing or anything, but it was a big part of culture in the 70s and 80s. So, you know, you're happy because they're finally getting to go home and the war is over, but at the same time, you're sad because you're like, the show is ending. So, for that aspect, I can understand why it's rewatchable, but it's not rewatchable for me. But it is a good episode just because of, you know, it being the end. Okay, so number 2 is OR. And this is the first episode that fully took place in the operating room, and it just showed like continuous things of what happened in the OR and how much pressure that they had on them and what challenged them. And this says that season 3 was the turning point of the show, and more episodes began to push the boundaries of what MASH was capable of. And we recently watched that one. It's a good episode. It has its funny moments in it, but it's not like hilarious, but they did put some funny moments in it. I think I actually just watched that the other day, not gonna lie. So I agree with that one being on the list. I think I would have put it lower than Dear Sigmund and Yankee Doodle Doctor, but it's still very funny. And also, a quick fact, I never noticed this until I read it, but apparently in the show, and once I read it, I noticed, I was like, huh, yeah, that is true. Whenever they film scenes in the OR, even if something is funny, they don't put the laugh track on it, which is very interesting to me. All right, so number 1 is Point of View. And this one is very, like, I remember when I watched this one for the first time, I was like, whoa, because you are the patient. So the way that the camera is set up, it's like first person. You're the casualty going through the MASH unit. So, you know, you get to actually interact with the main characters and see what it's like to be a casualty of war during this. So for that aspect, it is rewatchable because it's cool that they decided to do that. But again, that's not one of our rewatched ones just because it's funny, but not as funny as some of the other ones are. It says, Point of View proves over and over upon rewatch that there will always be parts of the characters that they hide from others and themselves. So I agree with that, because the characters every now and like they would come to you and talk with you about stuff. So while again I don't rewatch it, it is a good episode from that. Alright, so this video has been super long and I'm going to have so much fun editing it, but I really enjoyed looking through this list and seeing what others consider rewatchable episodes of MASH. Honestly, the whole show for me is rewatchable, even though there's some, like I said, that I don't like we tend to skip over when we rewatch it, but I can't get enough of MASH. I'm so glad that I found it and that it was a part of my life, and it's still a part of my life. It's available on Hulu if you have it. The whole series is on there. Go watch it. But it actually, I have to say this because I just have to. It's even gotten me in contact with some of the actors. Like, I shared a picture of my tattoo on Instagram, and then I had Twitter at the time, and I put it on Twitter. And Loretta Swett, who plays Margaret Houlihan, not only liked my picture, but she shared it on her Instagram stories. It was like, look at this, how cool that we're impacting people. And I was like, what? And then I posted it on Instagram and tagged Alan Alda and his team, and his podcast actually liked it and reposted it. And I was like, excuse me? So just the fact that they know what an impact that they have even today. Like, I don't want to be dramatic or anything, but I honestly don't know what I would have done if I didn't have MASH to look forward to when I was in middle school, because it was my release at the end of the day. It was my comfort. And if I didn't, I honestly don't know what I would have done without that. But I just love talking about MASH and other things that I love. So maybe I'll find other articles like that and we can talk about them on here. I can do them for other shows that I love. And I've talked about MASH on here. What was it? MASH facts that you didn't know. And I think I knew a lot of them. So I'll have all the videos that I've talked about or made reference to and the cards. And if you want to see more of me and other things that I may not post on here, go check me out on Instagram. I am a lot more active on there just because it's an easier format to do. But I am trying to put the shorts or the reels that I make on Instagram to my YouTube shorts, the ones that I can, just to, still post on here. And if you liked this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, give it a like, and subscribe if you want to join me in talking about my comfort shows, tattoos, fashion. We talk about a lot of stuff on here. So if any of that interests you, make sure you subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.